Greetings, everyone. Greetings and welcome. My name is Slayheim. I used to play Final Fantasy XIV religiously. I'm kind of on a hiatus now. I'm exploring a lot of indie MMO projects. I'm dipping into that old school feeling where worlds still felt mysterious and a little dangerous. But Final Fantasy XIV has always held a special place in my heart. I played it during a pretty rough time in my life, and the era that meant the most to me, more than any other, was A Realm Reborn. I know A Realm Reborn doesn't get a lot of love from the community. People trash talk it, they skip it, they rush through it. But for me, that was peak Final Fantasy XIV. That was when it felt the most magical. The world was fresh, the mysteries were new, and everything we did, everything we saw, felt like the beginning of something enormous. The binding coil of Bahamut, that was legendary. It wasn't just a raid, it was part of the world. It was literally under our feet. It was tethered to the cataclysmic story of Dalamud, the twins, Louisoix, Phoenix, the moon falling, all of it. Back then, raids weren't this detached, optional sort of theme park ride. They were living extensions of the narrative. You had to experience them to understand the consequences of the world. It felt like we were unraveling ancient secrets every week. And your character, the Warrior of Light, wasn't a god yet. We didn't know how the Echo truly worked. We didn't have infinite plot armor. It was just this humble hero's journey where everything was a discovery, where the world was smaller, but somehow felt infinitely bigger because of how much we didn't know. Even the scars of the calamity in the distance, twisted metal heaps, crystals, the fallen shards of Dalamud, those little touches made the game feel alive in a way that's hard to describe to someone who didn't live through it. There were no politics, there was no cosmic hyperlore yet, just a broken world trying to rebuild. And the jobs, they were complex, they were unique, they made you think, they made you position yourself. Does anyone remember monks' greased lightning stacks or cross-class abilities? The subtle puzzle of leveling other classes just to unlock a single skill for your main, it created this weird internal sense of mastery, like you were slowly piecing together your character by exploring the world and its systems. It gave the game depth, not because it was hard, but because it respected your time and your curiosity. Even the cities had personality, not just in lore, but in gameplay. Gridania was the haven of leatherworkers and weavers. Limsa Lominsa had its blacksmith and armorers hammering away. Ul'dah shimmered with goldsmiths that were perfecting their craft. The world made sense because everything belonged somewhere. Each city felt like a culture, a profession, a personality. Nothing was homogenized yet. Nothing was flattened into convenience. And I know that I'll return to Final Fantasy XIV eventually. I know I will. But I recently read through Yoshi P's comments about the game possibly needing to be reborn again, and it stirred something in me, because I remember what it felt like when 14 actually was reborn. That moment was special. It was one of the last genuine New World MMO moments where you logged in not to check dailies, but to explore something bigger than yourself. A Realm Reborn felt like a rebirth, not just for the game, but for us as players. And that's why I'm wary now. Not because I dislike 14, it's still one of the greatest MMOs ever made, but because I'm not convinced Square Enix fully understands what made that era so powerful. There's been this slow, steady push towards accessibility, simplification, trimming away complexity, making sure no one ever fails or struggles or bumps into any friction. And the moment you start hearing rumblings about mobile integration, or the idea that future design choices might be guided by the limitations of phones instead of potential of PCs, my heart sinks a little. And this isn't specifically for 14. A lot of major studios kind of seem to be flirting with this idea. But I'm not anti-mobile. It's because MMOs are one of the last genres where scale still matters, where immersion matters, where the sensation of sitting down, logging in, and stepping into another world is part of the identity of the game itself. You can't compress that into a touchscreen without losing something essential. You can't replicate the weight of a world when half the UI is your thumbs. And I get it. We don't have the same time that we used to. Life is different. We're older, busier, worn down, juggling 1,000 things. The world isn't built for a 4-hour dungeon night anymore. Attention spans are shattered. Accessibility is important. Convenience is important. But it's a double-edged sword. Because the more you compress a world to fit modern lifestyles, the more you risk losing the soul that made it magical in the first place. And another thing that's changed, the overworld. Back in A Realm Reborn, the overworld mattered. There was danger, there was exploration, there were threats you had to pay attention to. Now the overworld might as well be a lobby with mobs. There's no sense of peril, there's no tension. Most players just sit in cities queuing for instanced content. Only a small percentage of the population engages with high-end challenges. The rest of the world is, well, it's dead, and I think that's a shame. I genuinely think Square Enix could fix this, not by dumbing things down even more, but by challenging players to improve. Reward people for playing their jobs well, incentivize mastery instead of smoothing everything until it's impossible to fail. Make the story compelling again. Tie the raids into it like Coil did. Give the world a reason to be explored, not just passed through. Yes, it is harder to do that, and it doesn't guarantee more subscriptions, but it builds loyalty, it builds community, it builds worlds. And, I think it's something that a lot of players feel deep down. Something irreplaceable has slowly slipped away while nobody was looking. Maybe Final Fantasy XIV does need to evolve. Maybe it really does need another rebirth. But I hope, with everything in me, that it remembers its roots. That it remembers the miracle that was A Realm Reborn. Because the moment 14 stops being a world and becomes just another app, that's when the magic fades. And I don't want to lose something that once meant so much, especially when everyone trash talks A Realm Reborn like it wasn't one of the most transformative eras in MMO history. I just wanted to share my thoughts. Thanks for listening.